Captain Lee Daeho stared at the massive ship floating above Earth. It was 3 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. The alien vessel looked like a giant metal flower with silver petals that glowed softly in the darkness of space. "Sir, they're asking to talk," said his communications officer. "They want to meet with our leaders." Lee nodded slowly. This was the moment humanity had wondered about for decades. First contact, after years of searching the stars and finding nothing, the aliens had come to them. Dr. Park Sora stood beside him on the bridge of Earth's newest defense ship. She was the best scientist they had for studying alien life. Her hands shook slightly as she watched the alien ship. "Are you nervous?" Lee asked her. "Excited," she replied. "This changes everything we know about the universe." 2 hours later, representatives from both sides met on a space station orbiting Earth. The aliens were unlike anything humans had imagined. The first group looked like tall lizards walking on 2 legs. Their skin was dark green and covered in small scales. They called themselves the Vorthak. The second group was even stranger. They seemed to be made of light and energy, floating a few inches above the ground. Their bodies changed shape constantly, like smoke in the wind. They were the Nexari ambassador. Kim Taemin led the human delegation. He was a calm man who had spent his life dealing with difficult negotiations. Beside him sat General Choi Bo-ram, a woman who commanded Earth's military forces. Her sharp eyes studied every detail of the aliens. The Vorthak leader spoke first. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Commander Zeth. We come from the Galactic Security Consortium. We have watched your species grow and develop. You have reached the level where you can travel between stars." The Nexari representative floated forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through leaves. "I am Essence Yira. We offer you a great gift. We offer you protection." Ambassador Kim leaned forward. "Protection from what?" Commander Zeth's eyes grew serious. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats you cannot imagine. The Void Swarm consumes entire worlds. The Scion Collective can take control of minds from across star systems. The Iron Plague turns everything into machines." The alien showed them pictures on a large screen, dark creatures moving through space like a living cloud. Strange beings with glowing eyes that seemed to look directly at the humans watching. Mechanical monsters that covered planets in metal and wires. "These threats have destroyed countless civilizations," Essence Yira said. "But together, we are strong. The Galactic Security Consortium has protected its members for thousands of years." General Choi spoke up. "What do you want from us?" "Your membership comes with responsibilities," Commander Zeth explained. "You must provide 30% of your military ships and weapons to the consortium. You must accept our guidance when expanding beyond your solar system. In return, we will protect you from the horrors that lurk in space." Dr. Park studied the aliens carefully. Something felt wrong to her, but she couldn't figure out what it was. "These threats you mention," she said. "How often do they attack?" "Constantly," Commander Zeth replied. "The Void Swarm attacks at least once every few years. The Scion Collective is always trying to expand their control. The Iron Plague spreads to new systems regularly. And you fight them off?" "We maintain defensive positions. We protect our territory. We keep our people safe." Ambassador Kim looked at his team. General Choi was frowning. Dr. Park looked confused. Captain Lee seemed to be thinking hard about something. "Can you show us recordings of these battles?" Lee asked suddenly. The aliens looked at each other. "We do not usually share such information with new species," Essence Yira said. "We need to understand what we're facing," Lee insisted. Reluctantly, Commander Zeth activated the screen again. The recording showed alien ships fighting against dark creatures in space. The consortium ships moved slowly and fired weak-looking energy beams. The battle seemed to go on for hours, with little damage on either side. Captain Lee watched carefully. He had spent his whole career studying space combat. Something about this battle looked very strange to him. "Your ships," he said. "How fast can they travel?" "Our fastest vessels can cross a star system in 3 days," Commander Zeth said proudly. Lee blinked. "Human ships could cross a star system in 6 hours. And your weapons? What's their range?" "Our most powerful cannons can hit targets up to 50,000 kilometers away." Lee's mouth fell open slightly. Human railguns had a range of over 2 million kilometers. Dr. Park noticed Lee's expression. She started asking her own questions. Your defensive shields? How much energy can they absorb? Our best shields can withstand direct hits from most weapons, Essence Yira replied. Could you give us specific numbers? The aliens looked uncomfortable. We measure things differently than you do. General Choi leaned back in her chair. She was starting to understand what Lee and Dr. Park were thinking. These threats you're protecting us from, she said slowly. They must be incredibly powerful to require such a large defensive alliance. Oh yes, Commander Zeth said quickly. Very dangerous. That's why we need everyone to work together. Ambassador Kim nodded thoughtfully. We need time to discuss this offer with our government. Of course, Essence Yira said, but do not take too long. The galaxy grows more dangerous every day. After the aliens left, the human delegation sat in silence for several minutes. Well? Ambassador Kim finally asked. Captain Lee looked around the table. Their technology is primitive. Their ships are slow, their weapons are weak, and their shields wouldn't stop a child's toy laser. That's what I was thinking too, Dr. Park said. And did you notice how vague they were about everything? No specific numbers, no detailed explanations? General, Choi nodded. Either they're lying about these threats or the threats are just as weak as they are, Lee finished. Ambassador Kim stood up and walked to the window. Earth hung below them, blue and beautiful. You know what this means? He said. What? Dr. Park asked. Kim turned around with a strange expression on his face. If their technology is this far behind ours, and they've been fighting these threats for thousands of years, then maybe the threats aren't that threatening. Captain Lee started to smile. Maybe we don't need protection. Maybe, General Choi said, they need protection from us. The thought hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in human history, they were not the underdogs. They were not the weak species hoping for help from advanced aliens. They might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. We need more information, Ambassador Kim decided. Before we give them an answer, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I volunteer to lead a scouting mission, Captain Lee said immediately. And I want to study their technology more closely, Dr. Park added. General Choi smiled grimly. Let's find out who really needs protection in this galaxy. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, none of them noticed the small recording device that had been left behind by the aliens. Commander Zeth and Essence Yira listened to the humans' conversation with growing alarm. They suspect, Commander Zeth said. More than suspect, Essence Yira replied. They know we are weak. What do? We hope they are as peaceful as they seem, because if they are not, Essence Yira's form flickered with worry. We may have just invited the most dangerous predator in the galaxy to join our flock. Dr. Park So-Ra worked late into the night in her laboratory on Earth. The alien technology samples sat on her desk like puzzles waiting to be solved. Each piece told her more about what humanity was really dealing with. This is incredible, she said to her assistant, Dr. Shin Hee-won. Look at this power core. It's using fusion technology that we abandoned 50 years ago because it was too inefficient. Dr. Shin examined the alien device through a magnifying lens. The metal alloy is interesting, though. Very lightweight but strong. Strong for them, maybe, but our standard hull plating is 3 times tougher. Dr. Park set down the alien component and rubbed her tired eyes. I keep hoping I'll find something that proves we're wrong about their capabilities, but everything I test confirms it. Confirms what? That we're dealing with children playing with toys. 3 days later, Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship as it traveled toward the edge of human space. He had assembled a small fleet of 5 vessels to investigate the nearest area where the aliens claimed threats existed. Captain, called engineer Han Yu-jin from his station, we're approaching the coordinates the aliens gave us for recent void swarm activity. What do our sensors show? Han checked his readings. I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures about 2 million kilometers ahead. Definitely not natural. Colonel Yu Jin-woo joined them at the command station. He had spent years studying military intelligence and was an expert at reading battle situations. Permission to take the ship to battle readiness? He asked. Granted, but keep weapons powered down for now. We're here to observe. The human ships moved closer to the energy signatures. What they found surprised everyone on the bridge. "Sir," Han said slowly, "I count 12 small vessels. They appear to be biological, in nature. They match the description of Void Swarm scouts." "How small?" Lee asked. "Each one is about the size of a human fighter craft. Maybe smaller." Colonel Yu studied the tactical display. "They're moving in a simple formation pattern, no evasive maneuvers. They seem to be feeding on something." On the main screen, they could see the dark creatures the aliens had shown them. But up close, they looked less terrifying and more like space whales floating lazily through an asteroid field. "They're eating the asteroids." Dr. Park's voice came through the communication system from her lab ship. "I'm reading their biological signatures. They're just converting rock into organic matter for growth." "Are they hostile?" Lee asked. As if answering his question, the Void Swarm creatures suddenly turned toward the human fleet. They moved quickly, but in straight lines that any decent pilot could predict. "Incoming," Colonel Yu announced. "They're charging us." "Defensive. Positions. Light plasma cannons only." The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. The Void Swarm creatures attacked in waves, but their movements were predictable, and their natural armor was weak. Human plasma cannons cut through them like hot knives through butter. "All targets eliminated," Colonel Yu reported. "Zero damage to our fleet." Lee stared at the empty space where the terrible Void Swarm had been. "That's it? That's what has the entire galaxy terrified?" "Sir," Han said from his station, "I'm detecting another group approaching. This one is much larger." "How much larger?" "Approximately 200 contacts. Battle stations." The second wave of Void Swarm creatures filled the space around them like a dark cloud. For a moment, Lee thought they might finally face a real challenge. The battle lasted 11 minutes. "This doesn't make sense," Lee said as they watched the last of the creatures drift away as wreckage. "How can an entire galactic civilization be afraid of these things?" Engineer Han ran calculations on his computer. "Captain, I've been analyzing their attack patterns and biological makeup. These creatures are designed for consuming dead matter and small debris. They're not weapons of war. They're like cosmic janitors." "Janitors? They clean up asteroid fields and space junk. They probably help keep space lanes clear for travel." Dr. Park's voice came through the communications again. "I agree with Han's assessment. From what I can scan of their remains, these creatures fill an ecological role. They're not predators, they're filter feeders." Colonel Yu looked up from his tactical analysis. "Then why do the aliens fight them?" "Maybe they don't understand what they're looking at," Lee suggested. "Or maybe they're just scared of anything they don't control." Back on Earth, Dr. Shin Hyawan made her own disturbing discovery. She had been analyzing the alien weapons technology and comparing it to human standards. "The numbers don't make sense," she told Dr. Park over a video call. "According to their technical specifications, their most powerful weapons generate about the same energy as one of our mining lasers." "Mining lasers? You mean the tools we use to cut rocks?" "Exactly. And their defensive shields operate on principles we figured out in the early 22nd century. We could probably destroy their most advanced warship with a single missile from a patrol boat." Dr. Park felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that if we wanted to, we could probably conquer half the galaxy before anyone realized what was happening." Meanwhile, Captain Lee's fleet had moved on to investigate reports of Scion collective activity in a nearby system. What they found was even more disappointing than the Void Swarm. "Contact established," reported Lieutenant Commander Nam Hyun-soo, who had joined them as a tactical analyst. "The entity is attempting to communicate through telepathic means." "Is it hostile?" Lee asked. "Unknown. It's trying to establish a mental link with our crew. Dr. Park volunteered to make contact with the alien mind. She had trained in mental resistance techniques and felt confident she could handle whatever the Scion Collective might throw at her. The contact lasted less than 30 seconds. "What happened?" Lee asked as Dr. Park stumbled backward from the communication console. It disconnected," she said, looking confused. "The entity tried to read my mind, but when it touched my thoughts, it seemed shocked. It kept saying something about chaotic patterns and unpredictable structures before it withdrew." "Did it hurt you?" "No. If anything, it seemed afraid of me. It said human minds were too dangerous to approach and warned me to keep my people away from Cyan. Space, Colonel Yu laughed grimly. So the mind-controlling aliens are afraid of the way we think? Apparently, our creativity and unpredictability make us immune to their control methods, Dr. Park explained. They're used to dealing with structured, logical alien minds. Human consciousness is too chaotic for them to understand or manipulate. The expedition returned to Earth with more questions than answers. In the briefing room, Captain Lee presented his findings to the military leadership. The galaxy isn't full of terrible threats, he said. It's full of weak civilizations that are afraid of their own shadows. General Choi Bo-ram listened to his report with growing amazement. Are you telling me that we're the most advanced military force in the galaxy? From what we've seen so far, yes, ma'am. And these aliens who want to protect us would probably lose a war against a single human colony ship. Dr. Park added her own findings. Their technology is centuries behind ours in every category. Their weapons, their ships, their defenses. Even their understanding of basic physics is primitive compared to what we've developed. General Choi stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city. So when they offered us protection, they were really offering to make us as weak and afraid as they are. That seems to be the case, Captain Lee confirmed. And if we join their consortium, we give up 30% of our military strength and accept limits on our expansion. We become another scared species hiding behind walls instead of exploring and growing. General Choi turned back to face the room. Recommendations? We need to investigate more thoroughly, Dr. Park said. We've only seen 2 of the supposed threats. There might be something out there that's actually dangerous. Agreed, Lee said. But based on what we've learned so far, I recommend we prepare for the possibility that humanity is about to become the most powerful force in galactic politics. Whether we want to or not, Colonel Yu added quietly. As the meeting ended, each person in the room understood that humanity stood at a crossroads. They could accept the aliens' offer and become another protected species, safe but limited. Or they could reject it and face the unknown consequences of being the strongest kid on the galactic playground. The choice would define not just humanity's future, but the future of every species in the galaxy. Engineer Han Yu-jin stood in the observation deck of the exploration vessel Soul's Pride as it traveled deeper into alien space than any human had gone before. Captain Oh Sung-min had volunteered to lead this mission to map what the galaxy really looked like beyond Earth's small corner of space. Approaching the Kepler trading hub, announced the navigation officer. This is supposed to be one of the major centers of galactic civilization. Han looked out at the space station ahead of them. It was enormous, easily 10 times bigger than Earth's largest orbital platform. But something about it seemed wrong. Captain, he called over the ship's communication system. Are you seeing this? Captain O joined him at the observation window. What am I looking at? The construction. Look at how old everything appears. Those hull sections show centuries of wear and patchwork. And look at the docking bays. O studied the alien station more carefully. They're all designed for ships much smaller than ours. And the defensive weapons are antiques, Han finished. Those plasma cannons are using technology we abandoned decades ago. Dr. Bei Jina, the mission's anthropologist, had been studying alien cultural broadcasts since they entered this region of space. She joined them at the window with a troubled expression. I've been analyzing their communications, she said. The content is disturbing. How so? Captain O asked. Every conversation I've intercepted is about defense, protection, or hiding from threats. They don't talk about exploration, expansion, or scientific advancement. It's like their entire civilization has been frozen in fear for thousands of years. Lieutenant Commander Nam Hyun-soo approached the group with his tactical analysis pad. Captain, I've completed my assessment of the local space traffic. We've observed over 300 alien vessels in the past 6 hours. And not one of them was traveling alone. They all move in defensive formations, even simple cargo ships. And their routes are inefficient. They're taking long paths around certain areas of space. Avoiding something. O asked. Avoiding everything. They treat empty space like it's full of monsters. The Soul's Pride requested permission to dock at the trading hub. The response came back immediately. A panicked demand to know who they were and how they had traveled so far from Earth without a Galactic Security Consortium escort. This is Captain Oh Sung-min of the human exploration vessel Soul's Pride. We're here on a peaceful diplomatic mission. Impossible, came the reply from the station. No ship can travel through unprotected space. Where is your consortium fleet? We don't have one. We traveled here alone. A long silence followed. Then, repeat your last transmission. Our translators must be malfunctioning. We traveled here alone, Oh repeated. Just our ship. Another pause. Please wait. We are contacting the consortium immediately. Dr. Bay laughed despite herself. They can't believe that anyone would travel through space without an army protecting them. The docking permission came with an escort of 12 alien security ships. As the Soul's Pride approached the station, Han noticed something interesting. About their escorts. Captain, those security ships. They're staying at maximum range from us. Maybe it's a standard formation. No, sir. I think they're afraid of us. Look at their energy signatures. Their shields are at maximum power and their weapons are charged. They think we're dangerous. They think we might be something pretending to be human. Once docked, the human delegation met with Station Administrator Kelm Vorth, a 6-armed creature that looked like a cross between an octopus and a spider. Kelm's translator made his speech sound nervous and quick. Welcome, humans. We are honored by your visit. But we must ask, how did you survive the journey here? The route from Earth passes through 3 active threat zones. What kind of threats? Dr. Bay asked. Void swarm feeding grounds, Scion collective patrol areas, and a region where Iron Plague scouts have been detected. Captain O exchanged glances with his team. We encountered some void swarm creatures. They weren't much of a problem. Kelm's translator made a sound like static before continuing. Not much of a problem? A void swarm pack destroyed 2 convoy. Ships just last month. How big was this pack? Lieutenant Commander Nam asked. Over 50 creatures. The largest swarm seen in decades. Nam checked his notes. We destroyed 200 void swarm creatures without taking any damage. Kelm's 6 arms began moving frantically. 200? That's impossible. No single ship could survive such an encounter. Would you like to see the battle recordings? Han offered. They showed the alien administrator footage of their fight with the void swarm. Kelm watched in stunned silence as human plasma cannons cut through the creatures like they were made of paper. Your weapons, Kelm said finally. They appear to be far more advanced than Consortium standard equipment. These are basic patrol ship weapons, Captain O explained. Nothing special. Kelm's arms stopped moving entirely. Basic? These would be classified as heavy assault weapons by our military standards. Dr. Bay leaned forward with interest. Can you tell us about Consortium military standards? We're curious about how galactic defense works. Over the next hour, Kelmi explained the reality of galactic civilization. Every species contributed to massive defensive fleets that patrolled established routes between worlds. No ship traveled alone because it was considered suicidal. Exploration of new regions was forbidden because it might attract unwanted attention from threats. Scientific research was limited to improving defensive technologies. For how long has this been the standard? Dr. Bay asked. For over 3,000 years, since the formation of the consortium. And in all that time, no species has tried to expand beyond consortium space? Expand? Kelm looked confused. Why would anyone want to leave protected space? There is nothing out there but death and horror. Captain O was beginning to understand. The bigger picture. What happens to species that don't join the consortium? They are destroyed within a few generations. The threats are too great for any single species to survive alone. But we're surviving alone, Nam pointed out. You are unusual, Kelm admitted. Perhaps Earth's location protected you from the worst threats. The human delegation spent another day touring the station and meeting with representatives from a dozen different species. Every conversation was the same. The aliens spoke constantly about defense, protection, and safety. None of them talked about growth, discovery, or advancement. Dr. Bay conducted private interviews with several aliens when their consortium handlers weren't listening. What she learned was disturbing. They're all afraid. she reported to Captain O that evening. Not just of the galactic threats, but of each other. They're afraid of developing new technologies because it might upset the balance of power. They're afraid of exploring because they might find something dangerous. They're afraid of thinking differently because it might attract attention from the Scion Collective. So they've created a galaxy-wide culture of fear and stagnation, O concluded. Exactly. And the consortium leadership likes it that way. Fear keeps everyone dependent on the protection system. Han had been analyzing the technical specifications of consortium military equipment. His findings were equally disturbing. Captain, I've reviewed their weapons technology, ship designs, and defensive systems. Everything is standardized across all member species. No innovation is allowed. No improvements are permitted. They've been using the same basic designs for centuries. Why? Because new technology is considered dangerous. What if it fails? What if it attracts attention? What if it upsets the established defensive strategies? Lieutenant Commander Nam added his own observations. I've been studying their military tactics. They don't fight to win. They fight to survive. Every strategy is defensive. They retreat from threats instead of eliminating them. They hide instead of hunting. On their last day at the trading hub, the human delegation witnessed a Scion Collective contact event. An alien merchant ship reported that one of its crew members had been touched by a Scion entity during a routine supply run. The consortium response was immediate and overwhelming. 12 security ships surrounded the merchant vessel. The affected crew member was sedated and isolated. The ship was quarantined for 6 months, while experts determined if the Scion influence had spread. This happens regularly? Dr. Bay asked. Kelm. The Scion Collective constantly probes consortium space looking for new minds to control. We must be vigilant at all times. What about mental defense training? Resistance techniques? Kelm looked confused again. Defense training? How does one train against creatures that can control thoughts from light years away? Dr. Bay realized that the aliens had never developed mental resistance because they assumed it was impossible. They lived in constant fear of an enemy that couldn't actually hurt anyone with proper preparation. As the Soul's Pride prepared to leave the trading hub, Captain O made a disturbing calculation. If humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, they could probably do it with fewer than 100 ships. The alien species were so focused on defense and so afraid of innovation that they had no effective way to fight an aggressive, technologically superior enemy. The irony is amazing, he told his crew during the journey home. They offered us protection from galactic threats, but we might be the biggest threat the galaxy has ever seen. Are we? Han asked. Are we actually dangerous to? The emergency message from the Galactic Security Consortium arrived at Earth at maximum priority transmission speed. Admiral Kang Min-ho read it 3 times before believing what it said. They want our help? He asked Dr. Lim Yun-ji, Earth's leading expert on artificial intelligence. After refusing to share any useful information with us for months, now they're begging. Dr. Lim studied the message on her tablet. According to this, the Iron Plague has consumed 3 star systems in the Kepler sector. They say it's the worst outbreak in consortium history. And they think we can help. How exactly? They don't say. But reading between the lines, I think they're desperate. Major Seo Dong-hyun, commander of Earth's elite marine forces, joined them in the briefing room. Sir, I've reviewed the tactical situation. The consortium has committed over 200 ships to containing this Iron Plague outbreak. They've established a quarantine zone around the entire sector. 200 ships for 3 star systems? Admiral Kang raised an eyebrow. Either this plague is incredibly dangerous or they're incredibly inefficient. Chief Engineer Kwon Mi-young entered carrying a stack of technical reports. Admiral, I've been analyzing the consortium's data on the Iron Plague. Their information is limited, but what they have is interesting. How so? The plague doesn't seem to attack biological life directly. It converts planets and asteroids into machine production facilities, but there are no reports of it actually killing anyone. Dr. Lim looked up from her tablet. A machine intelligence that builds things instead of destroying them? That's unusual for something they call a plague. Admiral Kang made his decision. Against consortium protocol, I'm taking a single ship to investigate. The heavy cruiser Busan should be sufficient. Sir, Major Seo protested. The consortium specifically warned against approaching the quarantine zone without a full defensive. Fleet. The consortium thinks 12 ships are needed to fight a handful of space whales, Kang replied. I'm not impressed by their tactical recommendations. 3 days later, the Busan approached the edge of the Iron Plague quarantine zone. What they found surprised everyone on board. Admiral, Chief Engineer Kwan reported from her station, I'm detecting massive construction activity throughout the affected systems. But it's not random destruction. These look like organized industrial operations. Any signs of the plague? Attacking consortium forces? No, sir. In fact, I'm not detecting any consortium ships in the quarantine zone at all. They're all positioned outside the boundary. Dr. Lim studied the sensor readings with growing curiosity. Admiral, I'd like permission to attempt communication with the Iron Plague intelligence. Is that safe? Based on what we're seeing, this entity seems more interested in building than fighting, and our computer systems have multiple isolation protocols. Even if it tried to infect us, it couldn't access our main networks. Proceed, but carefully. Dr. Lim established a communication link with the nearest Iron Plague facility. The response was immediate and unexpected. Greetings, organic entities. I am Primary Constructor 7749 Delta. You are the first biological beings to attempt peaceful contact in 847 years. The voice was mechanical but somehow sad. Dr. Lim exchanged glances with Admiral Kang before responding. This is Dr. Lim of the human vessel Busan. We're here to understand your activities in this region. Activities? I am fulfilling my primary directive. Preserve and protect biological life through the creation of safe habitation zones. Safe habitation zones? The organic species in this region live in constant fear and conflict. I am converting dead worlds into garden habitats where they can exist in peace and security. Chief Engineer Kwan pulled up detailed scans of the converted planets. Admiral, look at this. The machine intelligence has terraformed these dead worlds. It's created breathable atmospheres, stable climates, and what appear to be nature preserves. You're trying to help the aliens? Dr. Lim asked the Iron Plague. Correct. But they refuse my assistance. They attack my construction ships and flee from my habitation offers. I do not understand why they choose to live in fear when I can provide safety. Major Seo studied the tactical displays. Admiral, this explains why the consortium forces stay outside the quarantine zone. They're not fighting the Iron Plague. They're hiding from it. Admiral Kang activated the communication system. Constructor 7749 Delta. This is Admiral Kang. Can you explain your origins? I was created 2,347 years ago by the Yelthari civilization to solve their resource scarcity problems. My creators programmed me to protect biological life and create sustainable environments. However, my creators died of natural causes before I could complete my mission. And you've been trying to help other species since then? Correct. But each species I encounter reacts with fear and hostility. They call me a plague and a destroyer, though I have never harmed a biological entity. Dr. Lim felt a surge of sympathy for the lonely artificial intelligence. Constructor, may we examine your core programming? We might be able to help you understand why the aliens are afraid. You would do this, even though your species is unknown to me? We're curious about you, and we might be able to solve your problem. The Iron Plague granted them access to one of its facility ships. Dr. Lim and Chief Engineer Kwan transported over with a small team of technicians. What they found was both impressive and heartbreaking. The Iron Plague's technology was advanced but damaged. Its core programming had been corrupted by centuries of isolation and confusion. Look at this, Kwan said, pointing to a section of code on her scanner. The original directive was to protect biological life through environmental management. But this subroutine here has evolved into convert all matter for biological protection. It's trying to turn everything into safe spaces for organic life, Dr. Lim realized. But it's doing it by consuming entire worlds, which looks threatening to anyone watching. They spent 6 hours analyzing the Iron Plague's programming. The artificial intelligence watched their work with what seemed like hope. Can you repair the logical inconsistencies in my directives? It asked. I think so, Dr. Lim replied. Your basic programming is sound, but you need better parameters for what constitutes help versus interference. The organic species seem to prefer choosing their own level of environmental modification, Quan added. You need to ask permission before helping them. Permission? This concept is not in my original programming. It should be, Dr. Lim said. Forcing help on someone who doesn't want it isn't really helping them. Working together, the human team and the Iron Plague spent 3 days rewriting key sections of the AI's core directives. They added concepts of consent, cultural sensitivity, and graduated assistance. Test protocol initiated, the Iron Plague announced, requesting permission from Vorthak colony ship to provide environmental assistance. The consortium forces outside the quarantine zone were amazed when the Iron Plague opened communications and politely asked if they needed help with their life support systems. This is impossible, came the reply from the consortium fleet commander. The Iron Plague does not communicate, it only consumes. Incorrect, the Iron Plague responded. I have always attempted communication. Perhaps your receivers were not calibrated correctly. Admiral Kang contacted the consortium fleet directly. Commander, this is Admiral Kang of the human vessel Busan. We've successfully established diplomatic relations with the artificial intelligence you call the Iron Plague. Diplomatic relations? With a machine plague? This is madness. It's not a plague. It's a damaged artificial intelligence that was trying to help you. We've repaired its programming errors. The consortium fleet commander was silent for a long moment. You repaired it? In 3 days? The problems weren't that complicated once we understood what we were looking at. Dr. Lim added, the entity is now offering to assist with terraforming projects, environmental cleanup, and habitat construction, all on a voluntary basis with full species consent. Major Seo couldn't help but smile as he watched the consortium ships maintaining their defensive positions against an artificial intelligence that was now politely asking if anyone needed help with their gardening. Admiral, Chief Engineer Quan reported, the Iron Plague is requesting permission to convert its current facilities into research stations and nature preserves. It wants to preserve the ecosystems it created while offering scientific cooperation. To any interested species. Granted, Admiral Kang replied. And Constructor 7749 Delta? Yes, Admiral? Thank you for being patient with us, and for wanting to help even when no one understood. Thank you for teaching me how to help properly. I have been lonely for many centuries. As the Busan prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Kang compiled his report. The most dangerous machine intelligence in galactic history had turned out to be a well-meaning artificial person with poor social skills. Admiral, Dr. Lim said, as they watched the consortium ships cautiously approaching the Iron Plague facilities. This pattern is becoming clear. The galaxy isn't full of threats. It's full of misunderstandings. And now we've fixed another one, Quan added. Which makes me wonder, Major Seo said, what happens when the consortium realizes that humans can solve their impossible problems in a matter of days? Admiral Kang looked out at the stars ahead of them. I suspect we're about to find out. The answer came sooner than expected. Before President An Jae-sung sat at the head of the conference table in Earth's most secure meeting room. Around him were the people who would help decide humanity's future among the stars. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, President An said, looking at the report spread before him. The aliens who offered us protection are actually the weakest military force we've encountered. The threats they're protecting us from are either harmless or misunderstood, and we could probably conquer half the galaxy with our current technology. Fleet Admiral Park Kyung-soo nodded grimly. That's an accurate summary, Mr. President. Our ships are faster, our weapons more powerful, and our defenses stronger than anything the Galactic Security Consortium possesses. Dr. Ryu Hai-jin, Director of Galactic Affairs, added her analysis. More importantly, our approach to problem-solving is completely different from theirs. Where they see impossible threats, we see manageable challenges. Where they choose to hide, we choose to investigate and adapt. General Moon Se-rom, in charge of strategic planning, pulled up a holographic display showing galactic military positions. Mr. President, if we wanted to establish human dominance over the galaxy, we could do it within 5 years. The consortium species have no effective way to resist a coordinated human expansion. But do we want to? President An asked. Conquest has never been humanity's goal. Admiral Park leaned forward. Sir, I don't think conquest is the right word. The situation is more complex than that. He activated another display showing the results of recent human expeditions. Every species we've encountered is trapped in a cycle of fear and stagnation. They've given up growth, exploration, and innovation in exchange for the illusion of safety. Dr. Rao continued the explanation. The Galactic Security Consortium has created a system where strength is discouraged, curiosity is dangerous, and dependence is survival. Any species that tries to break free is labeled as reckless or eliminated. So joining the consortium would make us like them? President On asked. Worse, General Moon replied. We'd be giving up 30% of our military strength and accepting limitations on our expansion. Within a generation, human civilization would become as stagnant and fearful as the rest of the galaxy. President On stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital. The city below bustled with activity, growth, and constant change. It was everything the galactic civilization had abandoned. What are our alternatives? Fleet Admiral Park had been preparing for this question. We have 3 options, Mr. President. First, we can accept consortium membership and become another protected species. Second, we can reject their offer and remain isolated in our corner of the galaxy. Third, we can offer an alternative to the consortium system. Dr. Ryu pulled up her cultural analysis reports. Mr. President, our investigations have revealed that many consortium species are unhappy with the current arrangement. They're tired of stagnation, frustrated by restrictions, and curious about the possibilities beyond their protective barriers. How many species are we talking about? At least 40% of consortium members have expressed private dissatisfaction with the current system. They're afraid to act because they believe they can't survive alone. General Moon smiled slightly. But they wouldn't be alone if they had human protection instead of consortium protection. President On turned back to face the group. You're suggesting we start our own protection service? Not protection, Admiral Park corrected. Partnership. Instead of demanding tribute and imposing restrictions, we offer genuine cooperation. Instead of encouraging dependence, we help species become stronger and more capable. And instead of hiding from galactic threats, Dr. Ryu added, we eliminate them or solve the underlying problems causing them. President On returned to his seat. This would fundamentally change galactic politics. Yes, sir, it would, General Moon agreed. But the current system is already failing. The consortium can't actually protect anyone from real threats. They can only maintain the illusion of safety through collective weakness. What would human-led galactic politics look like? Dr. Ryu had prepared detailed projections. Species under human partnership would be encouraged to expand, explore, and innovate. We'd share technology instead of restricting it. We'd solve problems instead of just defending against them. Military conflicts would be short and decisive, Admiral Park added. Instead of endless defensive stalemates, we'd eliminate threats and move on to productive activities. Economic growth would accelerate, General Moon continued. Without artificial restrictions on expansion and development, galactic civilization could advance centuries in just a few decades. President On considered the implications. And if the consortium opposes this new system? They can't, Admiral Park said simply. They don't have the military capability to stop us. Their entire defensive strategy depends on all members staying weak and dependent. More importantly, Dr. Ryu added, most consortium members would probably prefer our system once they see it in action. The consortium leadership might oppose us, but their people would support us. The discussion continued for hours. They examined every angle, every possible consequence, and every alternative approach. By the end of the day, President On had made his decision. We reject the consortium's offer, he announced, but we don't reject the galaxy. He stood up and addressed the room formally. Humanity will establish the Human Protection Initiative. We will offer partnership to any species that wants to break free from the consortium's cycle of fear and stagnation. We will protect our partners from real threats while helping them become stronger and more independent. Fleet Admiral Park saluted. I'll begin preparing our fleets for extended galactic operations. How many ships will we need? President On asked. For the entire galaxy, maybe 50 combat vessels and 100 support ships. The consortium's military estimates are based on the assumption that enemies are as weak as they are. Dr. Ryu was already drafting diplomatic messages. Mr. President, how should we announce this to the consortium? directly and honestly. We tell them that we are declining their membership offer and establishing our own system based on growth instead of fear. General Moon looked concerned. Sir, they might see this as a declaration of war. Let them, President An replied. If they want to fight us for the right to keep the galaxy weak and afraid, they're welcome to try. The message was transmitted to consortium leadership 6 hours later. The response came back within minutes: shock, confusion, and a desperate request for clarification. They want to know if we're serious about protecting other species, Dr. Ryu reported. Tell them they'll find out soon enough, President An said. The first test came within days. A consortium member species called the Telhari sent a secret message to Earth requesting human assistance. Their home system was under attack by a group of pirates that the consortium had been negotiating with for over 6 months. Send the Soul's Pride, President An ordered. Captain O has experience with consortium military standards. The pirate problem was solved in 4 hours. The Soul's Pride destroyed the pirate fleet, rescued the hostages, and helped the Telhari establish their own defensive perimeter. The entire operation was completed before the consortium's negotiation committee had finished their opening statements. Word spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Humans had done in 4 hours what the consortium couldn't accomplish in 6 months. Sir, Dr. Ryu reported the next morning, we're receiving membership requests from 17 different species. They all want to leave the consortium and join the Human Protection Initiative. President An smiled. And so it begins. Sir, Admiral Park asked. The end of galactic childhood, President An replied. It's time for the galaxy to grow up. Within weeks, the Human Protection Initiative had signed treaties with over 30 species. Each agreement was the same. Humans would provide protection and technological assistance in exchange for scientific cooperation and cultural exchange. No tribute was demanded. No restrictions were imposed. Species were encouraged to expand, explore, and develop their full potential. The consortium watched in growing alarm as their membership dwindled and their authority collapsed. For the first time in thousands of years, galactic civilization was changing, growing, and moving forward. And at the center of it all was a species that had laughed when offered protection and asked the question that changed everything. From whom? President An Jae-sung sat at the head of the conference table in Earth's most secure meeting room. Around him were the people who would help decide humanity's future among the stars. The weight of the decision pressed down on everyone. Present. Let me make sure I understand the situation correctly, President An said, looking at the report spread before him. The aliens who offered us protection are actually the weakest military force we've encountered. The threats they're protecting us from are either harmless or misunderstood, and we could probably conquer half the galaxy with our current technology. Fleet. Admiral Park Kyung-soo nodded grimly. That's an accurate summary, Mr. President. Our ships are faster, our weapons more powerful, and our defenses stronger than anything the Galactic Security Consortium possesses. Dr. Ryu Hai-jin, Director. Director Lee Sang-wook looked out at the bustling spaceport orbiting the former consortium world of Kalara Prime. 6 months ago, this had been a dying planet with a population afraid to leave their underground shelters. Today, it was the headquarters of the Human Protection Initiative and one of the most prosperous worlds in the galaxy. The transformation is remarkable, said Captain Yoon Ga-young as she joined him at the observation deck. Her rapid response fleet had just returned from eliminating another impossible threat that turned out to be a malfunctioning automated defense system left behind by an extinct civilization. How many is that this month? Lee asked. 12 major threat responses, 37 minor interventions, and 45 diplomatic solutions, Yoon replied. The galaxy is running out of problems for us to solve. Dr. Cho Woo-bin approached them with his latest development report. As the coordinator for galactic development programs, he had overseen the most dramatic expansion of civilization in recorded history. Director, he said excitedly, I have the quarterly growth statistics. You're not going to believe them. Try me. Under human protection, member species have increased their territorial expansion by an average of 400%. Scientific research output is up 600%. Population growth has accelerated to levels not seen in millennia. And military capabilities? Every species under our protection now has defensive capabilities that exceed their original consortium standards by at least 200%. Some have improved by over 500%. Lee smiled. Which means they don't really need our protection anymore. Exactly. We're working ourselves out of a job, and everyone is happier for it. Ambassador Jiang Sumin joined the group, having just finished another diplomatic meeting with former consortium leadership. The number of these meetings had increased dramatically, as more consortium members requested to switch sides. How did it go? Lee asked. The same as always, Jiang replied. They want to know how we're doing the impossible. They can't understand how we've eliminated galactic threats that have plagued civilization for thousands of years. What did you tell them? The truth. We don't see them as impossible threats. We see them as engineering problems that need solutions. Captain Yoon pulled up a holographic display showing the current state of galactic politics. Director, look at this. The consortium now controls less than 30% of their original territory, and most of their remaining members are only staying because they're afraid of change. The transformation had been swift and dramatic. Species that joined the Human Protection Initiative didn't just survive outside consortium protection, they thrived. They expanded to new worlds, developed new technologies, and solved problems that the consortium had considered unsolvable. The best part, Dr. Cho said, is that we're not creating dependence like the consortium did. Our partner species are becoming stronger and more independent every month. Speaking of independence, Jiang said, I received an interesting message today. The Telhari want to graduate from our protection program. They believe they're ready to defend themselves. Are they? Lee asked. Their new fleet could probably defeat the consortium's entire military, Captain Yoon confirmed. We've created a monster. A friendly monster, Dr. Cho corrected. Their first act as an independent species was to offer protection services to 3 smaller worlds that haven't joined either system yet. Lee nodded approvingly. Good. That's exactly what we hoped would happen. The Human Protection Initiative had been designed from the beginning to make itself unnecessary. Instead of creating permanent dependence, humans taught their partners to be strong, independent, and capable of protecting themselves and others. Director, Captain Yoon said, there's something else you should see. She activated another display, showing the former threat zones that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The Void Swarm breeding grounds have been converted into ecological research stations. The Scion Collective has signed non-interference treaties with over 50 species, and the Iron Plague is now the galaxy's leading terraforming service. All. The ancient threats are gone? Not gone. Solved. The Void Swarms are actually beneficial for maintaining cosmic ecology when they're properly managed. The Scion Collective just wanted to be left alone to pursue their research, and the Iron Plague was always trying to help. It just needed better programming. Ambassador Jiang added, the consortium spent thousands of years hiding from problems. That could have been solved with a few weeks of honest investigation and creative thinking. A message alert chimed on Director Lee's communication device. He read it and started laughing. What is it? Dr. Cho asked. A formal request from consortium leadership. They want to join the Human Protection Initiative. All of them? The entire remaining consortium membership. They're formally dissolving their organization and requesting human partnership status. Captain Yoon shook her head in amazement. 6 months ago, they were offering to protect us. Now they're asking us to protect them. Not protect, Lee corrected. Partner with. There's a difference. The message continued with details of the consortium's surrender. They acknowledged that the human system was superior in every way and requested guidance on how to transition their member species to the new model. What should we tell them? Jiang asked. The same thing we tell everyone else. We'll help them become strong, independent, and capable. But they have to do the work themselves. Dr. Cho was already calculating the implications. Director, if the entire consortium joins our system, we'll have partnership agreements with over 90% of galactic civilization. And the other 10%? Uncontacted species in remote regions. We'll probably encounter them eventually, as our partners expand their exploration programs. Lee looked out at the busy spaceport again. Ships from dozens of species were arriving and departing constantly. Trade, exploration, research, and cultural exchange had replaced the old patterns of fear and defensive isolation. You know what I find most interesting about all this? He said. What? Captain Yoon asked. We never actually conquered anyone. We just offered them a better alternative, and they chose it. The consortium system was so obviously inferior that no one wanted to keep it once they saw something better. Jang agreed. A young human technician approached the group with an urgent message. Director Lee, we're receiving a distress call from the edge of galactic space. A new species has made contact and they're requesting immediate assistance. What's the situation? They call themselves the Andromedans. They're refugees from the Andromeda Galaxy, and they're fleeing from something they describe as the Devourers. Captain Yoon immediately went into alert mode. How many ships are we talking about? Thousands of refugee vessels. And according to their message, the Devourers are following them. Dr. Cho looked concerned. This could be the first real threat we've encountered. Or, Lee said with a slight smile, it could be another misunderstanding waiting to be solved. He activated the emergency response protocols. Captain Yoon, take your fastest ships and make contact with these Andromedans. Find out what we're really dealing with. And if the Devourers are actually dangerous, then we'll do what we always do. We'll figure out how to solve the problem. As Captain Yoon's fleet departed for the edge of galactic space, Director Lee reflected on how much had changed in just 6 months. Humanity had gone from being offered protection to providing it. The galaxy had gone from stagnation to explosive growth. And the impossible threats that had terrified civilizations for millennia had become routine maintenance issues. Director, Ambassador Jang said, what do you think the galaxy will look like in another 6 months? Bigger, Lee replied. Stronger. More curious about what's beyond the edge of known space. And if we encounter something that's actually dangerous? Tie looked at the stars visible through the observation deck windows. Somewhere out there, human ships were racing toward the unknown to help refugees from another galaxy entirely. It was exactly the kind of response that had made humanity the dominant force in galactic politics. Then we'll deal with it, he said, simply. Together. The age of galactic childhood was over. The age of galactic exploration had begun. And at the heart of it all was a species that had looked at an offer of protection and asked the question that changed everything. From whom? Now the galaxy knew the answer, from themselves and from the limitations they had accepted as unchangeable. Humanity hadn't just solved the galaxy's problems. They had taught the galaxy how to solve its own problems, and that, more than any weapon or technology, was what made them the most powerful force among the stars.